Okay. Well, as we navigate what is the ethos of technology, welcome everyone to One-on-One Live with Coach Blue and Athletic Director Marissa.
Hello.
It is about 62,000 degrees in the studio today. We've yet to be able to find the homeostasis of comfortability, if that's a word.
Yeah. Like my office is ice cold and other rooms are
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. So
to the sun.
You go to the gym and it's probably about the perfect temperature. You come in my office or Marissa's office. Mine's boiling hot. Yours is freezing cold. Yeah. So
studio gets really hot.
So if you see us sweating under the pressure, it's really because it's 1 trillion degrees in here. We'll figure that out. None to worry about, right?
Yeah.
But no, welcome everyone. We're glad to have you here. This is our weekly call-in show where we talk about all things addiction recovery, mental health awareness, relationships, whatever you've got kind of on your plate. We are here to help. Coach Blue here. I'm a substance use disorder counselor and mental health therapist. Marissa is a recreational therapist, nationally certified.
Yes, I am.
And CEO and, like they say, the athletic director of this team. She's the backbone of this company.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Sometimes.
I'll crown you. I'll proclaim that. Okay. Hey, as we approach Giving Tuesday, which is kind of like a national giving back kind of experience. We're going to do something a little bit different this year for Giving Tuesday. Usually it's this mad dash to social media blitzing so that we can maybe get our input out there so that you guys can look at Addict Athlete maybe as a donation service where you can kind of donate to our program to help us increase our reach and be able to help us, touch the lives of those who have been struggling with addiction.
It's a great way to donate at the end of the year. If you're looking at tax deductions, if you do it on Facebook, you get automatic emails with your receipt. So
yeah,
it's easy.
And it's interesting because big platforms like Facebook and all the other places, they will typically match whatever you make in the first hour if you get in at a certain time. So it's kind of it's like an internet version of Black Friday at Kmart back in the day, right? It's everyone rushing. And I've always hated that.
For donations.
Yeah, I've always hated that because you've been so charitable with us this year. We're going to take a different approach. So instead of asking for funds for Giving Tuesday, we're going to give back to you. And what we're thinking about doing is a very large live broadcast where we can have guests come on and do not really a telethon like Jerry's kids back in the day, but to have something we can give back to you. You guys have been so generous this year with our Project ELF and some of those things that I really felt like instead of requesting more donations, we want to give back to you. So we're coming up with a few things. We're going to be doing some live giveaways with some of our merchandise and stuff that we can send out to you, but really just kind of show you how much we appreciate what you've done for us giving throughout this year. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be, when is Giving Tuesday?
It is November 29th.
Awesome. You need to get a little closer to your mic so that they can hear your lovely voice.
How's the sound?
It's good now.
Listening?
Yeah, it's good now. You just got to pretend like you like that mic.
All right.
But it's going to be a great experience for us to give back to you for all that you've done for us. And if you do want to contribute to Addict Athlete, the Patreon is a great place for you to do that because the Patreon is us, again, giving you back something in return.
Yep.
The Patreon is a program where you can donate to Addict Athlete. You can pick a tier with a monetary donation that goes to several kind of tier systems that increases in content, in merchandise, and some bonus features and things. And we can do that to you to give back for you contributing to the podcast here.
Yep.
So do you have our list of current Patreon celebrities?
Yes, I do. We are going to start at the top this time and come down. So our champion level subscribers are the Robinson family and Ron and Deloche. Thank you to our champions. Then we go down to the pro level. That's Andrew Baird and Gary Thurston.
Absolutely.
Thank you to our pros. Rookie level is Sione and Mary Inuk, Sherry Polson, Earl Dyer, and Wendell Wood. Thanks, guys. And our super fans, Karen Hardy, Steve Riggs, Tracy Whitby, Jerem Thurston, Tara Butson, Holly Davies, Scott Foster, Brett Frew, Chris Williams, Sensei KP, Brown, and Patrick Forsyth. Thank you all to our super fans. And we have one brand new, we'd like to introduce. There's some levels that we don't repeat all the time, but we have a new
And
And I think
whenever,
it's the
yeah,
upper deck.
whenever you come on,
Yep.
to Addict to Athlete, and even if you're not on a a shout out call, we want to let you know that we do have people that jump on here all the time that for $2 a month can join and get all the bonus content.
Yeah.
And so our newest,
So we'd like to welcome Maisie Bingham as a patron. So
Yeah.
thank you guys.
Thank you, Maisie.
And welcome Maisie.
Absolutely. So if you want to jump on there and see kind of what it's all about, you can go to patreon.com/addictoathlete and, pick a tier that works best for you. $2 a month that you can pay all at once and get a discount, get you all of the bonus content.
Yep.
So, and another bonus feature will be dropping here very shortly as well. So we like to do those as often as possible. And that's just exclusively to you Patreon folks.
Yes.
So that being said, thank you guys so much. But yeah, stay tuned for Giving Tuesday and our Project Elf. Anything you want to say about Project Elf?
Yeah. So we're in the middle of it. We have most of our applications in. We're doing some shopping. If you're interested in sponsoring a family or helping out, we also have a wrapping day in December. If you want to donate wrapping supplies or even come help the families wrap, we will be doing that probably around the 16th or 17th. But you can also donate on Venmo, Addict to Athlete Robinson, or on our website or on Facebook, and any of the donations can come and help us get these kids some Christmas.
Absolutely. So please jump on and check that out. Stay tuned to our website, addictoathlete.org, for lots of other content. And as we say that, if you have any questions about what the pulse of this team is, what we offer, what we're doing, where the chapters are located, jump on addictoathlete.org. Marissa has done a great job of setting that website up that has everything you're going to need to know about how this rhythm of recovery kind of flows. So addictoathlete.org is your spot. We have all of our calendar items on there. For all you coaches that are listening to this, please get your information into Marissa so she can keep that thing updated. Yep. But yeah, backlog podcast, everything's on there.
Yeah. And if I ever hear of any of our meetings changing times, places like our St. George, it got a touch cold in St. George, Utah.
Oh.
And so they've moved inside to the library. And so that is updated as well. Make sure you look at addictoathlete.org under resources and meetings. And I keep all of the meeting information for our support groups there.
So it is, and it's a great resource. And on there as well, we were getting quite a bit of traction on this, is our Addict to Athlete Certified Recovery Coach training program. This is a very intense program that'll help you become a peer mentor and a certified coach of Team Addict to Athlete to maybe increase your own understanding on how to help people with addictions. Even start a chapter of Addict to Athlete in your community. I'm a firm believer that it's a grassroots level approach that I see happening now, this movement of people being able to use their own talents and resources to help people overcome addiction. And I've noticed it in two ways, Marissa. I've noticed it with the people that have taken our training and have become coaches and opened up chapters. What I've noticed is that they use it for two reasons. One is three reasons, really to give back to the community, to help these people find a place to go that they can, exercise and learn and rebuild relationships through our method and our model, and being able to erase it and replace it by turning the mess into a message. And what I've noticed is that people that they're nervous about inpatient recovery, they're starting to make some commitments to themselves. They don't know what the level is. Sometimes they go to these meetings to see, can I do this with a personal coach, with a trainer, with the team, with my family kind of attending with me? And if the answer is yes, keep going. If the answer is no, then you can use Addict to Athlete when you're done and you come out of that program and you need that support system. Yeah. We see it quite a bit with
there
folks.
There are tons of people that get clean without having to go to rehab or treatment. And so being able to utilize support and sober support in your community is so vital. And it's vital whether you go to rehab and get out and you need that support, or you're not doing that and you just need some extra support that way.
Mm-hmm. And the neat thing about that, Marissa, that I really find kind of beneficial for family systems is that we practice a family healing approach. We call it your home team, to reestablish your home team, because every one of your homes needs to be a place of emotional safety, of structure, of direction, of communication, of activity. And when we apply some of the principles that you'll learn on Team Addict to Athlete, you can rebuild your family system to become what we call a dynasty championship team. And so please check out our website for all that information. Marissa, we got quite a few questions that have come in this last couple of days. A lot of them have been kind of like asking us directly, but we've always said, hey, we'd love to talk about this on the show because there's so many people that I think could benefit from this. The first one we want to talk about specifically, and it's not really a question that they submitted, just what I was having a discussion. And it was really based on how do I rebuild relationships with my kids after I've had such turbulence?
Mm.
Now, even if, and this individual that was talking to me doesn't have an addiction, but had been married and had relationships with individuals that had. And when you have a family that's blended in the first place, and you put the kids through these relationships that are based off of maybe hopes and wants and maybe some promises that don't really actualize, I really think that there's some concepts that we struggle with. We have a hard time saying, can I emotionally protect my children? How much is too much for them? What am I missing? How do I enforce rules that once were kind of like requests? There's so many avenues to this. How do you mend broken relationships with your children? I guess is kind of where we're starting with this. As we kind of dive into this, and now we've got a lot we could dive into because we've got other questions. I'm kind of curious. Do you truly believe, Marissa, that all relationships can be repaired?
Well, I believe in most cases it's possible, but it's a two-way street. So oftentimes one person wants to repair it and the other one doesn't. And so that can't be repaired,
Mhm.
But I believe if both people are interested, it could be.
So I look at this in my own life. Okay. Now, there were many attempts in my own life to rebuild relationships with my parents that weren't actualized because they weren't able. They weren't emotionally able. They didn't have the capacity. I really do believe that it just wasn't going to work. So I saw a thing yesterday. It was, I think it was on social media, obviously, probably TikTok, because I spend way too much time on that stupid app. But it was a guy saying, I don't have a relationship with my adult children. And he says, and I couldn't be happier. And I'm like, what? That's kind of messed up.
That's not what I was.
And he's like, now don't get me wrong. He's like, it hurts. It hurts to the core because all I want is to hug them and to just, pat them on the back and say, you guys are doing great jobs. But they've chosen not to have a relationship with me because they believe that for them, that's their best course of action. And he's like, that's exactly what I wanted in them. And the way he was describing it, saying they have their own, they become their own people. They become their own kind of like stewards. And he's like, as hard as it is,
those choices. Wow.
As hard as it is, he's like, I can totally be proud of them for them holding their ground on something that they feel passionate about. And I'm thinking, man, that's out of left field.
Yeah.
Because
that's a lot of maturity.
I know. And I'm thinking, wow. And I don't know what caused the rift in that family, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also like, well, buddy, then what are you doing next? What's your next step, right?
Yeah.
Because first of all, I think if you have a rift either with adult children or even younger children, I think you've got to understand you have to kind of acknowledge the problem. You got to acknowledge that there's a rift in the relationship.
Yeah.
And that's something that my mother never really did. She never said, hey, there's a problem here.
Yeah.
And most family systems, even if it's sibling rivalry or if it's, parent to child, what have you, we have a real hard time saying, hey, I'm struggling with this. And the reason why is because each camp really truly believes that they're correct.
Yeah.
Well,
and I think there's a lot of families, like you say, that just don't want to even acknowledge that there's an issue. So they just pretend that nothing's wrong and just keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have, certain feelings or resentment or, whatever that bubbles up, and they just feel like they can't express that because nothing's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a problem, right? And so that causes an additional problem, just trying to be in denial of it.
Yeah. And so when I look at that too, I'm thinking, all right, so then who makes the first move in those kind of situations, right?
Yeah.
And that's a hard one because we get these weird little stalemates in relationships like this. And specifically, if there's been some kind of pain, if you've been hurt or if you've been disappointed or if there's been some kind of fracture in that relationship, it's really hard to bridge that gap. But you have to identify that it does exist.
Yeah.
And that's one of the hardest things, if I think about these kind of things, if I would have been able to approach even my parents and say, hey, the reason why I'm feeling this way is because it seems to me that, you guys are always gone. I never get, you guys never touch base with me. I come home from school and you guys are gone to Windover, or like, I come home and dad's been drinking and mom's kind of like numbed out with her muscle relaxers. And I'm like, do you guys even care? Like if I showed up, would anybody even, if I didn't show up, would anybody notice?
Yeah.
But if I did that, automatically what's going to happen to them?
They're going to be on the defense.
Absolutely. So we got to find out what the real issue is. And I love doing therapy with people when I say, well, where's the pain come from?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the rift come from? And 9 times out of 10, people are really nervous about making, I guess, statements about their parents because they know that they did the best they could.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this all the time. Parents still have stewardship. We have stewardship in what happens with our kids. After last week's one-on-one, when we talked to you guys about how our boys were having a hard time with the passing of our pet and all these things, and I, kind of came to the epiphany on air, that I'd screwed up. After we shut the camera down, we brought them into the studio because they were here, and we had a little conversation about like, hey guys, I need to apologize. And the sad thing was, they didn't look me in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not used to they're used to that kind of emotion. But I think for the first time, like in their older lives, their teenage lives now,
mm-hmm.
they're like, wow, this is kind of weird.
Well, and it really is different and difficult when your parent comes to you and apologizes to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, I know our kids love us and they know that we love them because they don't want us to feel bad. They don't want us to hurt. And I was waiting for one of them last week to say, it's okay. Don't worry about it. And I'm so glad they didn't.
I love it. I didn't think about that. You're right.
Yeah. But you could see it in their eyes that they wanted to, and they didn't want to say, yeah, you did. And you're wrong, because they knew it would hurt us. But so often in situations like that, when somebody comes to you and apologizes, most the time I see and hear people say, it's okay. Don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Please don't ever do that.
I used to do that all the time.
Don't ever do that. Let somebody take that responsibility and take that, off their chest and be able to just say, well, thank you so much for sharing that with me. I appreciate it. Don't just say don't blow it off. That's such a trauma response for most people that have been through past trauma, is to just try not to make anyone else feel uncomfortable because you already feel uncomfortable. And I was really grateful that our boys didn't do that last week.
Absolutely. And it's kind of interesting. So those kind of things, I think the second step in that is making amends. And amends are kind of interesting because amends kind of makes it sound like there's some going to become, I guess, into some degree, some kind of compensation, or something that's going to be replaced for. Making amends is about you taking accountability. And so maybe instead of making amends, take accountability for your actions, for what you've done. And it's interesting because that's really, when you think about it, all I wanted from my parents was just to admit that they had some stewardship in it. So when we took that from our kids, I'm like, hey, you know what? You guys were right. I was in the wrong there.
Mm-hmm.
I took away the anger wind from their sails because they're like, dang,
Yeah.
But like I said, I've had clients, I told you, the classic one about my client Scott that had the interaction with his dad, and it was nuts because when his dad finally apologized, it was like he took that away from him, which meant that he can't level his addiction issues on that relationship anymore. And Scott wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
So taking accountability is huge. It's huge because I had to take accountability, right?
Yeah.
We all do at one point. And when we do that, that's kind of the opposite of being the victim. So instead of blaming, we take accountability.
Yeah.
And then
well, real quick, there's a comment here from Donnell. She said, in my addiction, I have submitted to my daughter, believing that I don't have a right to set healthy boundaries because of guilt for my addiction. Now I struggle because she believes she has a right to mistreat me. So setting those healthy boundaries now is something she does not accept.
Absolutely. And that's what we're talking about, right? So in Donnell's case, acknowledging that there's a rift, like you are still, taking advantage of my, I would say shortcomings.
Mm-hmm.
And so making amends is going to be taking accountability by saying, you know what? I didn't know how to approach this then. I do now.
I did parent out of guilt, and that guilt allowed you to, maybe run all over me when it shouldn't have, and I shouldn't have allowed that. And now it's changed our relationship dynamic, and I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And with those concepts comes now the platform of, okay, so what do you start doing? Because you cannot one day at a time this stuff. You can't. Those slogans are stupid when it comes to applying these resources that you're learning, these principles of healing and recovery, like, and putting them to the test. Now it's time to start engaging together with things to do. And I think one of the most amazing representations of this was a family that Marissa and I know, that when their adult son started struggling with addiction, the very adult father took him under his wing and said, "Grab your stuff, back up, we're going." And they just drove.
Yeah.
They
Dad
drove
just took off work for like a month.
a month. And what did they do, Marissa, while they were driving?
They went backpacking. They went camping. They did service.
Random acts of service.
They just found places to work and get involved and reconnect with each other, to have his son be able to reconnect with service. Like, they drove all around and looked for places to help. And that man today has been clean and sober for,
outstanding.
oh my gosh, probably near a decade now. And he's a great father. And I know not every parent can do that. Not every family can do that. But the investment in other ways could be there.
Well, it's thinking outside of the box on what we can do. They were in a situation where that could happen. But I'm telling you, you can create your own outcomes with the same kind of experiences if you kind of think outside the box with this. If we throw up our hands and say, we can't do this and I'm too busy or what have you, you'll lose this battle. You absolutely will. So sometimes it takes extraordinary measures to kind of recreate and reestablish relationships. So maybe it's not like, going on this month-long road trip because your finances aren't available, but what is, right?
Mhm.
Okay, well, I'm there. I'm at their place. I'm with them. We're doing things together. We're going hiking. We're doing whatever it is. Think outside of the box.
Well, and I think oftentimes we look at what other people have done, and I think most of the time what other people have done isn't the best idea. What we see happening in the media, or what people do with their kids in, the past of tough love and all that, it hasn't worked and it's not working. And so, like you said, thinking outside the box of something that doesn't usually happen maybe is what needs to happen. And that feels a little uncomfortable because it's not what you see in the mainstream. But those are the differences, I think, that make it count.
Yeah, we've had parents on the team that have started recreating together, and we had one that got in touch with us years ago. I think 2016, when we were doing our run in Salem, Utah. Our proxy run, and it was a father-son, and they trained together, and they raised money together, and they ran together, and they did so in and out of his addictions. And unfortunately, that battle was ultimately lost. But the result was he got to spend a lot of time with his son.
Yeah.
Even though it didn't turn out the way that they had hoped, you can't look back at that and say, well, that was a big waste of time.
No, I've followed and stayed connected with this father over the last 5 years since then. And, the son went to a 2-year program and got out and was clean for about 18 months and relapsed. And he just recently passed away in the last few months. And to watch his Facebook posts is just heartbreaking. But what I've seen and what I've loved in reading those posts is how much he truly, truly loves his son unconditionally. Loved him, whether he was sick, whether he was using, or whether he was sober. He loved him. And I think having a situation where this dad doesn't have any regret in what he could have, should have, or would have done is huge. Yeah. Does that make that pain go away that his son is gone now? No. Mm-hmm. But he was able to have that relationship with his son, and his son knew his dad loved him.
Absolutely.
And, that I think is the most important. Living with regret of, oh, I wish I would have, or my son didn't know I loved him because I pushed him away too many times. That this dad never did. He laid it out and did everything he possibly could.
Absolutely. I mean, a situation like that, you couldn't look back and replay the Cats in the Cradle song. Like, that was not there. They were together. And I think you look at those situations, and that is the disease of addiction. You know, I think that it runs two course. You know, there's those that use it to escape, and then there's those that use it because it's become part.
Mhm.
And so I look at these things, and engaging in activities together has a benefit for those kind of situations.
Yeah. Donnell has some follow up.
Mhm.
She said with her daughter that now, she has a difficult time setting healthy boundaries now that she's in a healthier place. She says, my daughter, I've done that. I've addressed it. And then she tells me that I'm playing a pity game and playing head games with her.
Mm.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Is it okay if she thinks that? I would say it is.
Yeah.
You
can't change how she thinks or
Mm-mm.
looks or views a situation.
No, it's like this. It's like this. I remember one time, and it was interesting. And it was when I think it was Brooklyn, our oldest now, she's 19, but when she was a wee little thing, she was a Spitfire. And I remember one time, yeah, she still can be.
But
one time she said something that I held a boundary with, and she's like, I don't like that decision. And I'm like, that's completely okay, because, I still love you, and I'm the one that made that decision. And it was kind of a funny thing when I look at that, because she has the right to feel that way and to truly believe that. My concept is, even if she does think that or feel that, I'm still going to be who I am. And if an adult child, like what Donnell's talking about, is saying, well, you're playing the pity party, I would simply respond of, I guess you could look at it like that. I don't think I'm using that as an excuse, but that's okay, because you're going to be consistent, right?
Yeah. And I'm sorry you feel that way. I am not doing that. I'm not playing it.
I would never say that. I would never say, I'm sorry you feel that way. I would say, I'm sad that I'm disappointed you think that.
Yeah. And it hurts me that you think that. But I think being able to leave it in her court and that's okay. You don't need to change her thinking. And I'm sure it hurts you to have her say that to you. But being able to let it go and say that's her own feelings and that's her own connection to it. I love you no matter what.
How do we, because and even if, right, Dr. Paul, how do we do that though, Marissa? Because Donnell brings up a really good point. That stuff hurts, and it really does. So how do we choose not to let it offend us, right? Because when you're in recovery, or when you're in an emotionally abusive relationship for years and years and years, your kids also know what your breaking points are.
Yeah.
And even though she's saying that, what is she really saying? There's something going on inside that adult child that still resorts to those old kind of guerrilla warfare tactics, right? Mm-hmm. Because realistically, if you were to peel back and get back to that accountability part, and if they were emotionally secure enough to get into accountability, what she'd really say is, Mom, I still feel lost. I still feel confused about relationships. I still feel, that, I'm struggling, and I don't know where this is coming from. I think that they do that because they want to transfer some of that emotional disturbance onto us and onto you.
Well, and I think often
don't let that sink in.
That behavior has been something that they've been able to get you with in the past as a hook to get you back to that old behavior. Mm-hmm. And that old behavior is what she's used to. She's used to interacting that way or pushing that guilt onto you so that she can get something else in return that she wants. And so it's her trying to hook you back to, if I keep doing this, I can get back to Mom and her old behavior. And that's the mom I know. That's the mom I'm used to interacting with. And a lot of times when you set new boundaries, doesn't matter if they're an adult child or a young child, once you set new boundaries, they're not just going to be like, oh, okay, you have a good boundary here. They're going to fight harder. Their reaction, their behavior is going to increase in the negative before it gets better.
Oh, they're going to triple and double and quadruple down.
Because they're like, this isn't real. Let me try again. Let me get all the power punches in here that I can do because I want to get this person back into the role that you're used to. And that's difficult. So just like you said earlier, being able to be consistent about it is going to continue to show her that, wow, maybe Mom is different. And maybe she's not okay. Like, I think you just had a comment. I feel like she's not ready to accept my apology because she has to be responsible for her actions. And that could be a piece of it too. Absolutely.
And here's the thing with that too. I think doing something different in that relationship is super important. So think about it. What she's doing is using control talk, with a subcategory of fight or spite talk with you to try and get you to reactively listen. Because if she does that and you react, she's got you. So if you take that away and you say to her something to the tune of, help me understand how you see it that way, because that's not what I think is happening here. She's either A, going to triple or double down. Like, I'm never going to talk to you. You're just, the most dense person ever. And you just don't care.
Yeah.
And you respond again. Like, it's another fight talk. She's trying to really hit you so that she can get you to react to it. And then she can say, you see, you're losing your mind.
Yeah.
So again, you're like, sweetheart, like, I hear what you're saying, but I'm having a hard time like understanding what I'm doing that's making you think this. Help me understand what you're seeing. And the thing is they can't, because they're trying to hurt you so that they can get to the reaction, so that the conversation can spiral, so it can be over. When we hold that and we kind of reverb it back by reflectively listening to what they're really saying, you take away the wind from their sails pretty quick. Yeah. Most people have a hard time with this. It's going to take upwards of 8 open-ended questions to get them to move. They're going to be fight talking with you, and you're going to have to take some on the chin. But what you do is kind of keep going to the source. What's making you feel this or think this? What do you see me doing that's causing that? Because I would like to know if I am being that way. I'd love to know what it is. The thing is that, and they'll even say, well, right now you're just being condescending, but I'm not. I really am trying to understand what you're saying. Help me, teach me, help me learn.
And sometimes they may end up just leaving the conversation and just wanting to get out because you're not falling into it. But like you say, if you stick with it and they will stick with it, usually you can get to something deeper.
Our daughter Savannah does that. She's very passionate, and she'll go to DEFCON 5 real fast to do the anger talk and to the storm out and slam the doors. And we'll just be like, well, all right. And within 10, 15, 20 minutes, hey, I'm sorry. And that's just what she's learned. And I'm like, I hope you can reel that in. But she does that because she's trying to do that self-preservation. She's disappointed in maybe something she's done or the way she's reacted or responded. So she's trying to get there so that we can get there faster so that it can be done. The fight will be over. If you take that wind away from the sails, the boat doesn't move. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So do something different. And then, of course, be patient. This stuff's going to take a lot of time. Parenting out of your inconvenience is kind of the goal here. And what do I mean? You hear me talk about it all the time. Dr. Paul talked about serving out of inconvenience, and I think it applies to a lot of different aspects of life. Parenting out of inconvenience is huge. It was super inconvenient last week to come in here after we're all an emotional wreck, having the dog pass away and the boys here. And we're like, let's talk about this. But that time spent was emotional money in the bank.
Yeah.
Right.
Because of, just their healing, our healing, and being able to have those open conversations further down the road is much better.
And something I've noticed, World According to Blue, things that I've read, things that I've noticed, just the way that things go. For every week of maladaptive behavior, it's going to take about a month of positive behavior before things change. You're thinking, holy crap, I've got 20 years of emotional turbulence. I mean, it's going to take a lifetime.
Yeah.
So you've got to be patient with it. It's not going to be a week. A parent that's in recovery, remember that kid still remembers you on the bathroom floor, and that will haunt them forever. And so you can't think, well, hey, I've been clean now for 15 years. When are you going to let it go? They probably won't. Because again, for every week, that's a month of your behavior. Yeah. And
their trauma is deep too.
It stinks, but on that journey, it's when the beauty comes out.
Yeah.
Right. Each time you are where you're supposed to be, or each time you make a promise and you fulfill that, or each time you don't surrender and try to bite them back when they're calling you out, those are victories.
Yeah. And, we were talking about this with Savannah last night because she's now doing a paper on the 80-20 rule. And this plays in right now. This is the time where you've got to be putting in 80%. And that 80% is going to have to be repetitive and repetitive and repetitive, and sometimes even 100%. But in time, some of that will start to switch. And then you will be able to put in 20% and they'll put in 80%. And it kind of goes back and forth that way. But it's going to take some of that harder work and, emotional, workout on your end for sure.
I think that there's a lot of gold there, and just kind of maybe wrapping this part up before we move on to the next. I look at this kind of stuff and I'm like, this is where like real life, I think, resonates. This is where the reality of everything we're doing kind of comes to a pivot point. If we don't do this, listeners, we're going to run out of time. And what I mean by that is if we wait till tomorrow to start changing our approaches or becoming more empathetic to what we've done or put our children through and more empathetic to ourselves, we're going to run out of time. Yeah. And if we do that, then we'll have lost so much potential, about what could have been, what would have been, and what might have been if we kind of get on this soapbox of I'm the victim. Do not pull that card if you want to rebuild relationships. You've got to be an agent, which if you want more information on that, reach out to me. I'll help you guys through that kind of stuff. The last one on this, if you feel like those roads are so clogged, get professional help. Call me, call Marissa, call some of our coaches. We have some tools and some techniques that we can help rebuild. So one thing we want to do as we kind of build Addict to Athlete here is to start bringing in family systems and working with families through recreation to help them learn how to support and to rely on each other.
Yeah.
Kind of important. So yeah, I hope that kind of helps a little bit, and it's good. Thank you, Donnell, for those questions.
Great conversation.
Yeah. One of the last things I want to talk about too was last night, and for a few weeks now, we've been talking to some folks that are kind of new to Addict to Athlete, and they've kind of said, "Hey, we've just been out of the loop for so long." Before COVID kind of ravaged our world here, meeting attendance was high, investments were strong, and then this all roadblocks lead to home isolation.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is that even 2 years post pandemic here, we are still not seeing people that have been able to reemerge and come back out. And I don't know if it's a complacency thing, if it's a fear thing, if it's kind of a I don't know where to begin again thing. But this isn't just happening to Team Addict to Athlete. This is happening to 12-step meetings, therapy groups, like education, all kinds of things.
Yeah, I work in our church with the youth, and it's happening there. I think it's just something people got really used to being at home and not interacting, not socializing as much, and it has become comfortable, and that's great. But now that things are open, people have a hard time still taking that step out. And in some ways, people may think they're okay staying at home, but the depression's on the rise. So are they,
Yeah. And I started looking at this and I got thinking, okay, so what has happened? I think that through COVID and through these experiences, I think that there's a lot of silent suffering going on. And, that's kind of like, okay, where do I restart having been forced to take a knee? Does that make sense? And we don't want to get too, political here. But it really has put a huge damper. I mean, even in students in school, we are still seeing like major like attendance issues and all kinds of stuff because, even with young kids who are now getting to the ages of, preschool, kindergarten, we're seeing some behavioral issues that no one's prepared for.
Yeah. Because
these kids didn't get to socialize.
Get the regular socialization from daycares or even early preschool and kindergarten. I didn't even think about it till a while ago. I heard a story, like these, what are they, second graders this year or third graders didn't go to kindergarten and first grade.
Yeah.
Like that's 2 huge years at very young ages, like developmentally, to miss 2 years of school.
Again, if you look back at Eric Erickson's stages of development, that stage of industry versus inferiority is huge because if they don't feel like they're part of something, they're going to develop feelings of inferiority. And so when we get these kids, now they're coming into mainstream school, the teachers better be absolutely on point, because if they're not, that launching pad is going to be completely disrupted. And so the teachers out there, my heart breaks for them, but we also see a huge uptick in overdose deaths. And the kids that are, again, labeled the opiate orphans, the fentanyl orphans, the overdose orphans, we're now starting to see them come into teenage years and young adulthood. And I'm telling you, I've been talking about this for about the last 10 years. It's going to be huge. It's going to be bad.
Losing that sense of community, that sense of family. It's long term.
And so we've had a few new people that have come to the team and have been very nervous about what they're going to find here. And, to their pleasant surprise, when they come, they find like open arms, and they find a new team. And it's kind of an interesting thing. Listeners, we need to start re-engaging with life. We've got to start doing things outside of our comfort zones again. If not, that isolation that kind of wants to get you back home and to tuck into the smartphones and the TikToks and the TV programming, it's going to get you. And I really do believe that we've got to start maybe, again, testing the waters on what's going to work for you. I mean, I'm noticing that there's so many conveniences now that want to have you stay home. Yeah. You've got, like Uber Eats and delivery systems, and it's great for the economy, but dang.
Movies. Like we were just talking, like, I don't know if we'll go to a movie theater much anymore. Like we can get them at home, and it's so much more comfortable. It's cheaper, but there's other situations where we need to get out and just really socialize in ways.
And the challenge becomes, like right now, higher gas prices and all the stuff that's kind of out of our own control. It's all geared towards keeping us complacent and at home. And, eventually you got to remember that we are not designed to be alone. We have to have interactions and camaraderie and unity through whatever you choose. And so I guess this is kind of like a plea to say, let's get you going again. If you're nervous, say you're wanting to attend an Addict athlete meeting, come in before the group, come meet with me, come meet with Marissa, come meet with coaches. Let's get you acclimated, and then introduce you to probably the most amazing group of people that you'll ever converse with. Yeah. And the thing that we do different is we are not anonymous. There's nothing wrong with you. An addiction is only a part of you. And, the coolest thing about what we've been able to do in the last 11, almost 12 years now is to reestablish, what an addiction is and what it isn't. And so realistically, to have these individuals recommit themselves to, become, an athlete or a mother or a father or a brother or a son, whatever it is, let's get you going. We bumped into one of our very old athletes this in the community the other day, and my heart just broke because I'm like, come back. It was, right before COVID and all this stuff crazy went on, and it just broke my heart. So it's like, find your path, find your why, and let's get you guys reestablished, because if not, it'll consume you.
Yeah, I think it's important. One of the things I've always said that I love about our meetings is we don't have anyone come in and identify as, hi, I'm Marissa, I'm an addict. No one knows who's in recovery, who's not, who's a family member, who's support. Anyone's open. This is an open meeting, an open group. The only thing we may ask at the beginning is, how did you hear about us? Or what's your favorite sport? But it's really, hopefully we try to do as much as we can to decrease some of that intimidation factor. I know coming into anywhere new is a scary thing. So even if you come in late and sit quietly in the back, that works too.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
But just come. That's the point. I think I would love it if everyone set a goal this week to do something social, something new, whether it's another meeting you haven't been to before, something in person, something social, going out with friends, do something this week to connect and get together with other people face to face.
Yeah. And I look at this and I think, if we're having all of these things that are kind of keeping us at home, what are you doing while you're there? Use it to better and strengthen yourself. Use that time for good. There's so many things that I think you can benefit from by just, re-immersing yourself into some of these situations that really are kind of uncomfortable at the beginning. there's so many of these cool experiences we'll have if we push ourselves out of that comfort zone. So just a little drop in the bucket for maybe a little bit of investment in yourself. Doesn't matter what you do. It could be a 12-step meeting, could be, we tonight here at the facility, we have the Addicts Fighting Back group. We're having a men's and women's group starting here soon. We're going to be having hopefully a grief group starting here. These are all things that will be, I guess, available for you if you have the courage to jump in.
In fact, our women's group is coming. I think it's every third Monday here, 7:00. In fact, this week, it's this coming Monday. They're doing it, and they're just doing like a recipe exchange. And I think you bring something to share, like a potluck kind of thing. Bring the recipe, and simple and easy.
Yep,
you get yummy food.
And if you're not here in the area, if we don't have a chapter where you're at, reach out. We can get you trained. We can get you the information, and then you can help be that beacon of light for so many people that are finding themselves in the dark. So thank you, everyone, for listening. We want to, again, promote the website, addicttoathlete.org, for all the information you might need on the program, about contacting us. If you need counseling, therapy, if you need some group work, whatever it is, jump on there and check us out. Addicttoathlete.org is your one-stop shop for all things Team Addict to Athlete. Again, thank you, Patreon subscribers. Thank you for downloading, sharing, subscribing to the podcast, because this live will be turning into a podcast within the next hour or so. So if you couldn't get the full thing listened to, check in a day or so. It'll be there for your
Apple, Spotify, everywhere.
Yeah, leave us a review. That helps a ton. It gets this podcast out further and shows the people out there kind of how to connect with us. So again, as we close this down, do your best. We look forward to being out there in God's country, the Uinta Basin. We're going to be opening up the Ute Strong chapter of Team Addict to Athlete on Friday, and then the Uinta Basin's having their benefit dinner on Saturday.
Yep.
So tune in. We'll be doing some live broadcasting from there, and we'll share the message of healing and recovery through those platforms. And so next time, jump in. We'd love to have your questions. And remember, athletes, to do all you can to turn that mess of addiction into the message of sobriety.